Welcome to the new Comic Crusaders podcast. Today I am joined by two of my great friends within the Comic Crusaders on the Cupcakes family. First up, the one and only El Professor.
Hello, Mega. What's going on?
What's going on, my friend? Of course, then we also have the one and only ShadeWing.
Hey, glad to be here. Love Kirby. I'm a really big fan of these people, so I'm absolutely in on this.
And talking about these people, these two amazing people, great writers in their own right, one coming from comics, one coming from the playwright world, but they're both award winners. I mean, I am honored to have them here. They created a Broadway play called Kirby. Now it's an audio drama. The one and only Fred Lente and Crystal Skillman. Welcome.
What up?
Hello.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it. We are honored to have you here. It's an absolute pleasure. We had the pleasure of listening to the first two episodes, of course, that are out now. Mm-hmm. That people will be able to listen to shortly. But what are we talking about? We'll get into that momentarily. First, how are you guys? Keeping safe and keeping well?
Safe.
So far, so good.
Excellent. All righty. So let's jump into it. Kirby, right? Why Kirby? Why choose Kirby as the topic for the play?
Well, he just sort of has this fascinating, almost like Forrest Gump-esque arc to his story where he just starts from the Depression, goes to World War II, romance comics in the 50s, cosmic 60s and 70s. It just is this, even if you don't know a single thing about comics, he did so many things with his life throughout that particular period in history. It was just sort of a fascinating thing to tackle. And then once you add the kind of Shakespearean relationship he had with some of his collaborators, it really lends itself really easily to a drama.
Understood. So what was your first, take in life of Kirby? What was your first taste of Kirby?
Mine was probably Stan Lee's book. My very first introduction to Kirby would have been in the Jules Pfeiffer book from '66, The Great Comic Book Heroes, which was this book that had this essay by Jules Pfeiffer, who's the famous cartoonist and filmmaker and playwright, who started out working for Will Eisner in his shop, like really in sort of the end of the golden age. Okay. And he wrote this essay that was reminiscing in the '60s about what was it like to work in comics in the 40s. And this was published in the New Yorker originally in '66, which of course is a banner year for comics because it's the year both of the Adam West Batman TV show and I believe also the Galactus trilogy. That might actually have been in '65. But anyway, it's right around that middle of that zeitgeist, right? And so I would have first seen Kirby in Captain America Comics #1, The Origin of Captain America, written that he and Joe Simon did, Kirby drawing and Simon inking him. That would have been in 42, I guess it is, 41. Okay. So I started out at 4 years old at the very beginning. And it only went up from there. And then as a kid, I would read the Marvel reprints of like the pocket books and stuff. Okay. Hulk, Thor, Fantastic Four, particularly. And then, I just ended up really sort of falling in love with the story because I was about a teenager when he was fighting with Marvel to get his artwork back in the 80s, where Frank Miller and a bunch of other creators came to his aid. Marvel was basically holding his artwork hostage to get him to sign away once again, the work for hire rights to all of his characters, which ultimately happened. And then I started researching a biography, but it was kind of I kind of hit the shoals there, but then I was dating a playwright at the time. And Crystal, was that your first introduction to Kirby? Was my first draft of the Kirby play?
It really was through your eyes, and
really? Okay.
Before even the play, I think I had read a copy of the biography you were writing. So I think that was where, because we read each other's work all the time, and
cool.
And I was like fascinated. I knew these images, but I don't think I re-encountered them until I started understanding the story of his own origin and also in collaboration with Stan. And, I think everyone has their own awakening to this, but that was that moment. I was like, I have only heard about Stan. Why is that? And I was just fascinated by that question. And so when he started working on the play, that was just something I definitely knew that this is the story of Jack and his life, but I also knew that tackling that question was going to be an important part for our audience, because I think we're teaching them, or they're learning and they want to learn. They're very eager to learn the truth and the true story. In terms of a comic book fan, I came at it when I was young, seeing in MoMA for the first time on the wall Art Spiegelman's original Pages for Mouse. And then Fred got me into Watchmen, and so like that, you know, I really
good man.
Yeah, so I guess
to start
by this way of storytelling.
She was going to hear about it anyway because I wouldn't stop talking about it. So.
All right, well, just shut up. I'll read it. No.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And all right, I'm going to show a little bit of a trailer so we could hear what it is, but before we even get into that, I also want to know about the casting, because you guys chose an incredible cast of voice actors here, at least for this, and also that were a part of the Broadway play. How did that come about? How was that casting like?
It was, well, you know, a lot of this, geez, almost every single actor I'd worked with on a different production or workshop, and when working with director John Hurley, who I've also worked with before, we were doing a lot of like almost like comic book like stories or jolty genre stories on stage. And so these actors absolutely came to mind for these roles. With Stephen, I just kept thinking about him. I'm saying, John, I think Stephen would be incredible. He goes, oh, gosh, that would be amazing. And the fact that Stephen fell in love with the role was so exciting for us, Stephen Rattazzi. So, you know, I love the Venture Brothers, but I really was a Stephen Rattazzi fan as well from, you know, now he's been in Indecent, but he was also my friend David Adjemi's play, Marie Antoinette. He was in Taylor Mack, who is super blown up in the theater world. He was in a lot of his work, and really is an incredible, versatile actor. And, you know, everyone here is a star because every time, you know, we've got Amy Lee Purcell, we've got Tiffany McCown Reynolds, we've got, you know, Nat Cassidy. You know, am I missing anyone? Like,
I don't think so. Joe Mathers.
Mathers, yes, Joe Simon.
And everyone except Steve has to play like 700 different characters anyway.
And that's the thing, I never know if I've gotten all the actors, because every time I listen to it, I think there's 100 people in the.
That goes to the skill of the voice right there, though. Awesome.
Yes.
Check that out. So if you want to hear these wonderful voices, people, let's get into it. Let's check out the trailer for King Kirby.
You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
A spark makes a universe. An idea makes a spark. Not bad. Better uppercut than Ozone Park, but your dodging and weaving has got nothing on Flatbush. I give Hell's Kitchen 5 out of 10. You gotta make the trend, Stanley, not follow them.
Face fronts, true believers! Verily, I just proclaim the magnificent Marvel Age of Comics is about to begin!
Why can't you talk normal? I knew violence. I made it real.
You want your hero punching Adolf Hitler in the face on the cover of the first issue?
He's Captain America, the superhero that represents patriotism, that smashes the US's enemies. It's what he does.
But can he sue us? The first issue of Captain America Comics sold 1 million copies. We've blown Superman and Batman out of the water! Yay!
You're supposed to grow up and learn the world isn't divided into heroes and villains, but that never happened to me.
What you've done with these heroes, fighting, flying, running, they are all you. And if that isn't worth fighting for, I don't know what is, because I fought for it.
I'm not your hero, Roz.
You know what I don't understand, Jack? You draw people punching each other in the face every day. You grew up in a street and you served in fucking France. Yet you refuse to stand up for yourself. You refuse to fight.
Sitting here at the drawing table, working into the wee hours of the night, taking his 3 sentences and turning them into this. An actual comic, a story, something someone can lose themselves in. That is the magic.
That's why they call you the King, Jack. King Kirby.
Those were my stories, too. You could have told them, Stan.
King Kirby,
based on the play by Crystal Skillman and Fred Van Lente, starring Steve Rattazzi as Jack Kirby, Amy Lee Pearsall as Roz Kirby, Joseph Mathers as Joe Simon, Nat Cassidy as Stan Lee, Timothy McCown Reynolds as Martin Goodman. Music composition and sound editing by Bobby Cronin, recorded at Midtown Comics downtown in Manhattan.
Wow, just wow, yo.
F-bomb in the trailer. We keep it real.
That was fire, and my favorite part of the whole trailer is listening to Jack tell Kirby. I mean, Kirby tell Lee in that very broken accent. You really gotta talk like that, like it's like that is just so funny. But right now, I'm gonna leave the floor to my professor too, because I know he has tons of questions and ShadeWing after listening to that. But that was amazing. So, Professor,
no, I mean, like, there's a ton of things that I kind of really want to get into and talk to you about, especially with the relationships between Lee and Kirby. But it seems to have three very distinct voices in your play, where you have Lee's perspective, Kirby's perspective, and then Joe Simon as well. And it's almost like who did what to who first, and who's right. Mm-hmm. And I guess when I'm reading that, what I wanted to ask you was, how do you marry those three very different viewpoints? And kind of really, because what the feeling that I got was that you try to bring it to the middle to find out what exactly might be the true story, rather than all these different interviews that your source material kind of came from, where everything was kind of one-sided on one side or the other side. It was kind of like listening to Democrats and Republicans when I was trying to read everything. But I thought you guys did a very good job at kind of focusing on the real kind of humanness and what gets said to people, and how relationships can really kind of get destroyed based on fame and fortune and money. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Crystal, but to me, sort of the singular, because for technical reasons, I was just listening to episodes 3 and 4 this morning, and there's a bit that's in the trailer that Joe Mathers delivers as Joe Simon that I think is pretty much the heart of the whole thing, which is him not really understanding why Kirby seems so aggressive and is the street tough guy, but doesn't really want to fight the suits and fight sort of the higher ups, and why is that, and isn't that curious? And how much is Kirby a participation in his own eventual erasure from history? You know what I mean? Right. Simply because he's not the assertive business guy that a lot of other creators are, Yeah, it was, there's, Fred's always pointed out that there are so many interviews, there are so many sources to go to, which we're lucky. There's so many quotes where in their own words, they're quoted for their perspectives. And it is about lining them up side by side and seeing, these are all perspectives, but the events, were drawn and published and seen. So we do have that timeline to go from in reference to these perspectives. And it's still coming up now. We were just diving deep a little bit about Vision with WandaVision. And, it even goes back to, if Joe Simon's trying to get his characters back, does Marvel necessarily want to mention him or come back to him for the creation of a character when another writer is suggesting that? This all came from Crystal asking me, did Jack Kirby create or co-create Vision? And I was like, well, it's complicated. How much time do you have? Sit back and let me weave a tale. But yeah, we were just reading an article today investigating that during a period when Joe Simon was trying to get the rights to Captain America back, which is something, spoiler, you'll hear about later in the show, was the same time Roy Thomas wanted to introduce this Vision character into the Avengers, which he was writing at the time. And Thomas gives the story that he actually got pushback from doing that. And theoretically, one of the reasons they did that is the Vision was initially a kind of obscure Golden Age character that Simon and Kirby created back in the same era as Captain America in the 40s. His name was Arrakis, and he was essentially a Spectre ripoff, believe it or not. He was an interdimensional being who came in, who could walk through walls and looked very, very similar to the Thomas Buscema Vision, but was otherwise completely different. And so he got a lot of pushback, but I guess got permission somehow to do it if he was an android and not literally
the Vision from the 40s, and that might have been because Marvel didn't want to pay Joe Simon any more money for any more characters they wanted to hold on to than they were already paying him for Captain
If
America.
they were paying him at all, actually.
Well, they did end up paying him a significant settlement in '69 so Simon wouldn't contest the rights of Cap.
And I think there's a difference in all the stories. You can see the different perspectives, which is very true. And if you read about any of these, legends, that Joe Simon wanted to create more of a life, a stable one for him and his family. He had a different perspective than Kirby, but not unsimilar in that sense. And Stan was in a different place. Stan had different, what he actually believed, is something else, like what was in his head. But he was a showman, and he wanted to build upon that. And so when you edit reality to do that, we in America know what can happen. We, interesting things, right? So, I think that is a choice for different reasons. And I think, so you could see the three individuals making these distinct choices for different choices in their lives, dealing with work, family, money, success, and their different viewpoints on what that is. Ultimately, too, I think Kirby has a great legacy that we found when we talk about him on panels at Comic-Cons, usually next to other creators that, in the case it's Merv, right? With who's creator of Blade, right?
Marv Wolfman.
Marv Wolfman.
Marv, the creator of Blade.
Tim Dracula.
Yeah, he tells a wonderful story of being going to visit Kirby and watching him draw, and literally being on the living room floor, as a preteen or teenager, and Roz making them tuna fish sandwiches. So the thing I would just end with that is that Kirby wins as a mentor, because whether you met him or whether you are inspired by his artwork, he became your teacher in a way that is different than the legacy of Stan Lee.
So one other thing I'll bring up, and then I'll let ShadeWing ask a question.
No problem.
Now the scene, there's a scene where you had union organizers when Kirby was working for Fleischer, and I thought that was a great and I don't know if that, I'm sure this was intentional, but you kind of crawl in Kirby's head a little bit where he had mentioned I don't want to be like my dad, and if I wanted to be like my dad, I'd still be I'd be running sewing machines somewhere.
And drops, yeah.
It's so, but to me, the way Kirby treated, I think, his job creating comics was much the same thing, where he looked at it as churning out the work, or being like that robot pulling levers, pressing buttons, but creating artwork at the same time. So I think in a pretty good parallel, he does end up like his dad.
Well, I'm actually gonna push back on that, because I don't think so, because don't forget, particularly once he gets into the Marvel area, Kirby was essentially writing all of his own stories. So he was storytelling. He wasn't simply doing what he did at Fleischer, which is drawing, Popeye holding a can of spinach, okay, people can't see my hand. I was doing this with spinach people. But he was really a creative force, and I think he just loved, telling stories. And I have to say that, at the height of his output, Kirby was cranking out 9 pages a day, and if you've worked in modern comics like I have, you're lucky to get a page out of somebody every 2 days.
You know what I'm saying? That's what that's how Kirby inspires me. He was a workhorse.
Yeah. But I don't think you get that level of production without love, right? Without the love of the work. I don't think people knock stuff out at a measured rate when they're bored and not fully engaged with what they're working on. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of that question had to do with just the sheer volume of work that he produced, which really, as you said, getting a page out of someone every 2 days, where he was creating 3, 4, 5, 6 pages a day. And it's just, that's a workhorse.
I mean, we're developing the play. I keep thinking of, if you guys know Les Mis at all, I keep thinking of him as Valjean, right? Who was this, who was the main character of Les Miserables, who has this sort of, unlike in a lot of Victor Hugo books, he's just got superhuman strength for some reason. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. But Kirby was like Valjean. He just had this superhuman work output that very few people. I mean, manga artists crank that out, a day, but they've got a dozen, between 3 and a dozen assistants working for them.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. This is the day of Kirby back then. I mean, it was just him and a board and a light with his cigars. Just cranking him out, though. I mean, I'm inspired by that. And just that imagination that sometimes I wonder, did he smoke weed or something? Because, geez, his imagination was wild as well to come up with what he come up with in designs. You know, it was phenomenal. Go ahead, ShadeWing.
Yeah, I really enjoy looking through this. And then one thing I really keep getting is the idea that Kirby was a dreamer in many ways, even though he comes across as this tough New York guy. Like, you can definitely tell his head is in the clouds and things like this. And he's just not in touch with the reality that's in them. And I just love the dramatic angle of that. But one thing that I've always been interested in, and actually this is one of the things that I've been kind of like studying on my own, is the idea that these people were really drawn from like the pulps of the time, pulp science fiction, things like that. Because every time like I read some old stuff, I'm like, this looks a lot like, Fantastic Four or something like this. So my question, and you brought up Amazing Stories, I believe, in one of the episodes. Do we know anything about Kirby's influences beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, Kirby was a lifelong science fiction nut. As you'll hear in the first episode, he is first inspired to get into storytelling in the first place by rescuing this pulp magazine from the sewer, literally, with spaceships and stuff on it. No, he read inveterately up until, like, apparently, when he passed in 93, 92, he had a garage just full of pulp magazines. Like, he had all these pulp magazines and never threw them away. And a lot of his inventiveness in character creation was, was from the pulp magazines. And one of my favorite, because later in life, obviously Lee and Kirby kept fighting over who created what. And one of my favorite quotes from this Gary Groth interview Kirby did with the Comics Journal, where he asserted basically he created pretty much all the Marvel Universe on his own without Stan's help.
Apparently, including Spider-Man.
Well, yes, including Spider-Man. Yeah. I think Doctor Strange would be the only one that you could include in there. But anyway, my favorite quote is he goes, Gary goes, really, even the X-Men? I was like, Kirby's like, of course the X-Men. I got that out of a pulp magazine. He goes, Stanley doesn't know what a mutant is.
So Kirby was the one who read Slan. I always wondered.
Until I came along, he got it out of Amazing Stories, and was very upfront about that.
That is hysterical.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I'll get into, I think before I kind of yield the floor here, is I'm kind of curious about your writing process. How do you decide, who writes what? How do you, do the division of labor? And, what do you kind of focus on?
Crystal writes the hard stuff, and I take a nap.
Perfect division of labor if you're a writer.
I had written, as we said in the opening, I wrote a complete draft in, I want to say 2002, and it sat in a drawer for about a decade until Crystal came along with an offer from the Comic Book Theater Festival, the Brook Theater Brooklyn, to do something.
Theater, yeah.
What did I say? The Brick Theater.
Yep.
And you were like, hey, remember that Kirby play you wrote? And Crystal started rewriting it. So basically, I did a draft, and then Crystal did a draft where she rewrote, and you added a lot of stuff with Roz. I think a lot of sort of connective tissue, sort of clarifying the framing device. Before I had this crazy framing device with like this New Gods character that had to be this guy like in cosmic Kirby armor, kind of stamping around the stage. It was interesting, but I don't think it really worked.
It was great and really dynamic, but I was like, how do we connect the audience with the meaning of the story? What are we saying? And kind of coming in it from that point of view. And it was all in there. It's just that if we start with the fiction first, we're not connecting to who's creating the fiction. So we started to look at that. And then we talked a lot about that because it was neat. I wanted it to be clear. This is a real timeline of a real person. And so if we make up characters that are like these characters, then we're adding another layer. So that was something also we clarified from that draft and really gave over to it. But it is about Jack, but it really does focus specifically on the creation of characters and work in many ways and how it affects the family as opposed to being a piece about family too. So it's a really unique piece that does very well live. The first image we have is Kirby, and you hear it in the audio. So audio still retains, obviously, even more so in many ways, that live quality, of Jack at his table creating. And so some people who know Jack Kirby enter the audience or hear that audio and are emotionally affected because they know they're going to be here with their hero. And some people are like, who is this person? I don't know who he is. And so it's a wonderful thing to see people experience, whether you are a diehard fan or for the first time, really investigating, how these things came to be that you love, that is your pop culture. So it was really fun to play with the choices of what could be live. In terms of dividing things up, some scenes we wrote together, and early on we had drafts that either I had written a draft of or he had written a draft of, specifically with the Jack Roz arc. And I think what was fun about that, we've never really done that with a specific arc that way. And I think because we're such a couple that works together, and they were such a couple that works together, the marriage of that kind of, there was one point where I was fighting for Roz's monologue. You heard some of it in the podcast, the trailer. And Fred was like, monologues, even the monologues. And it is true. I really love my monologues.
She's a playwright. She likes monologues.
And I was like, if you check out this monologue, I don't know what else. And I was like, and then we were saying stuff and we're like, oh, that's what they're arguing about. Put that in the play. Put that in the play. And we actually started putting, so there was a lot of energetic moments like that. There's moments where Fred would polish something up. There's something where I would look at something. So it really was a back and forth. It was really fun. And I work with a lot of people, you send drafts back and forth. It's always fun. Obviously we have found a way to stay connected in the pandemic in new ways, and that's terrific. But it is kind of amazing when you can hunt down the person in your house, but it goes both ways.
Yeah, sure.
Where's that rewrite?
Yeah, he's probably making a hidden room somewhere that you don't know about yet. You know what I mean? A really good away.
Panic room.
Panic room.
Secret bunker.
That's right. Exactly.
I have a question here then. So you were talking about, when play coming out and all. How was that initial reception to the show? What was day one like when the show, day one of the show? What was that reception like? What was the fan base like?
I feel like I was at the Comic-Con actually in the opening
It was
night
a
of the
really
show.
interesting experiencing opening the show and the festival for many reasons. It was incredible that the New York Times came. I don't even believe Andy Webster was invited. He had been following my career. He showed up in a Fantastic Four shirt, so we knew we better deliver.
Oh wow, crazy!
But this was really a labor of love, and we were really concentrating, as a team on that. And so it was sold out almost immediately. We went from 6 to 8 performances. But in terms of scheduling, it was interesting. Even in rehearsal, our schedules were either, I think, because I was working on a musical and at the same time, and also Fred was doing Comic-Cons all the time and doing appearances. So it was very rare if we were both in the rehearsal room at the same time. I'm sure everyone loved that. We tried to make sure there was continuity there. And then in terms of the performances, I saw the first 4. Fred saw the last 4. Okay. I think we were there together. It was very Lady Hawk in a way. And so I was the first up. And when I saw the reaction, and Fred's, was, at a Comic-Con and he's, on a panel or something, I'm texting like crazy, like, you got to hear this reaction. It's incredible. I've never experienced anything like it. So reactions, not just from before and after the show, but in the show, responses, guttural responses to Stan, if he gets the upper hand, and then when Kirby speaks his truth, people leaping to their feet. So it just really was a dynamic audience, and again, very 50-50. Half the audience really knowing Jack and his work, and the other half being like, why didn't I hear the story up until now? And many people afterwards came and said, this has to become bigger. More people need to know. And I said, well, that's why we've started.
We're trying.
I get it. That's why we're here to help you, because we believe in the cause, man. We believe in the cause, kiddo. But let me tell you, I really want to see this as a live show. I mean, like on TV or something. Like, let's get it. The Kirby years, the life of Kirby
are available.
But just call it Kirby. That's it. Or King Kirby. This is who have it. Why not? What is this new TV show? I want to see this as a sitcom, because that banter that you guys have, that you write within the audio dramas is, it's fun, it's hilarious, but it's real. When you get emotional, when it's humorous, it's bang on humorous. I do find myself chuckling with my headphones, and my wife's like, why the hell is he laughing? She's not into comic culture as much as I am. See, that's what I'm saying. Beautiful way you guys got that. You guys work together the way you will. I mean, you guys are award-winning folks here. So again, I'm honored to have you on. Now, Bud, he is itching. What's the question?
So no, my question really is the audio play, is that the next iteration, or what you're trying to do to keep this alive, since there's no stage going on right now? Do we see more of this in the future? Or do we see a lot of stage plays being transformed into audio plays?
You'd think you would. This is sort of an odd circumstance / coincidence in that the original stage production, we raised the money to do it on Kickstarter. Right. And we wanted to offer, we had Kickstarter backers from across the country. We had backers from as far away as Brazil and Israel, and we wanted people in Brazil and Israel to get something for their money, get their money's worth, right? So because of union laws, we weren't able to film the show, but we were able to record it. And so the recording that the podcast came out of was done back in 2014 with the original New York cast.
Oh, wow.
As a reward for the Kickstarter backers. And over the summer, someone approached us and was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing King Kirby as an audio drama?" And that sort of sparked us. We're like, "Well, wait a minute. We have the original cast doing it in Midtown Comics of all places."
Midtown, yeah. I know their origin story. Don't let me get started. I knew them from Ultra Video. And they asked them, what was Ultra Video? They started in the back store of a video store, Manhattan Avenue in Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Okay.
And from there is where I saw them move on and get the Times Square spot.
Right.
And then obviously from there it became legendary with the East Side and then downtown.
Yeah, we recorded the downtown location on Fulton Street after hours, and
I like that spot. Very nice.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good time. You can see I posted some video of that shoot on YouTube actually.
We have more fun footage.
We have more fun footage.
Oh, really?
Actually, technically, that's on YouTube right now.
You gotta share that, man. Hell yeah! You gotta start sharing that stuff, por favor.
We did.
Even more. I'm pretty sure you guys got some undercover stuff too. Come on now.
But so basically, we were like, and then Broadway Podcast Network expressed interest ahead of Broadway Podcast Network was interested in this material, ironically, because she had an office down the hall from Steve Ditko's studio.
Wow, no way.
Back, not that long ago. I think, right before he died, he was in the same studio for years, and so she knew him a little bit, and was sort of drawn to this kind of material. So it was sort of an interesting confluence of events.
And that's really been the mission: is the theatrical or dramatic storytelling with with the comic book world, and
Well, you brought talk a little bit about Bobby, because you brought Bobby on board.
Yes, and so I'm the book writer of a musical called Mary and Max musical. It's based on a claymated film by Adam Elliott. It's a little indie cult film, and it's a beautiful musical. We've been working on it for 5 years. We just had a premiere in Austria. And now we're working with Broadway producers now. So hopefully post-pandemic, you'll be hearing more about that. Bobby Cronin is the composer of that, and we work together on many projects. And when we started to look at this, I guess the most exciting thing, because I'm also working on some scripted audio, I have a piece called The Magician's Magician that I'm working with for Boom Integrated. So I'm penning new work, and Fred and I have been pitching stuff too. Then we look at this. And so a couple of things got me excited. One is that, wow, episodically this works really well. And that's something Fred discovered. He really discovered these breaks. And I was like, that's exciting to me, because I like that much more, so that you have options. You could wait until it's all out and listen to it all together. Or if you're an episodic junkie like I am, because these are only 15 to 20 minutes each, which is kind of my jam. Like, I'm like a little bit of a Night Vale girl, and like all the different offshoots they do. And oh, this is great. I have 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to put this on, and
Yep.
So it really hooks you, which is terrific. The second thing that I realized, so that kudos to Fred on that. The thing that I really realized with the music is I didn't want it to sound like old-timey radio. People will think that because it is an audio drama, but I wanted to have a modern superhero soundtrack. I wanted you to know that this is taking place in the 30s, but this story is interesting now because the Avengers are such a part of pop culture.
Yes.
Because the Danny Elfman scores that you love, or Hans Zimmer, that's this world. And Bobby Cronin is an incredible composer and did a great score for this piece, really inventive. And then this was super lucky because we were starting to talk to editors from our audio drama friends. And then Bobby's like, who's editing it? And we were like, we are talking to people. And he's like, I'll do it. And I was like, oh. Nice. And so it's because of that, and because he's such a good storyteller as a composer of dramatic work, his editing, I think, also has a really nice moving the story forward through music, through sound.
Yes, well, great job, man. Kudos. I mean, you guys have a wonderful project here, again, that I love, and I think everybody needs to be listening to. You know, I've been putting this up on and off over here. You know, you just listen. You want to go BroadwayPodcastNetwork.com. That's simple, right, folks. Right now, you got episodes 1 and 2, and what's cool about that is it's a 4-part series, so new episodes are released every Wednesday, right?
That's right, and you can get it. You can just Google, or you can Google King Kirby and get it on Google Podcasts. You can search for it in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just go to King Kirby if that's your preferred means of getting podcasts. And we're actually going to have a 5th episode.
A 5th?
That'll be a behind-the-scenes roundtable with us and the cast and Bobby, all moderated by Rob Salkowitz of Forbes.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that. That's good. That sounds amazing.
Really neat.
And you can follow King Kirby itself and follow us here. But also, and it links, these accounts also link to King Kirby on Instagram, which is at King Kirby Play, and it's King Kirby Play as well on Twitter. So you can check in. That we try to release some fun goodies like these behind the scenes footage that we're talking about. There's a little Stan Lee gem I'm gonna drop very soon.
Oh, I can't wait. So before you even go here, like Fred, you know, I know you're doing some work. You do an awesome series for IDW, comic book history. You know what I mean? What we got popping off there? Any new stuff coming via that side? Because they're so intriguing. And why that? You know.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you know, we just ended up, Ryan and I, a lot of what was in King Kirby started out in the comic book history comics. Ryan and I started out doing action philosophers, so we were just kind of looking for other, you know, interesting topics, unexplored topics to do in comics form. And Ryan loves animation. This is largely his baby. But I certainly had a huge kick out of doing it too. We did a successful Kickstarter for that. And the floppy comics are coming up through IDW, and the 4th issue drops March 3rd.
Okay, coming soon, kiddo.
Yeah, and that is called Saturday Morning Funhouse, and that's all your Saturday morning favorites, Hanna-Barbera favorites. We've gotten into that era.
Nice. Check that out. And what about you, Crystal? So, you know, what can we see now other than the King Kirby? Like right now, what you got popping off, and what do you have coming in the future? Again, just let people know. Use this avenue, kiddo. Yeah. So you kick butt on your end. I mean, I saw what you're all about, and you know, and kudos to you. Yo, you're very inspired. You know, you guys are a power couple, yo. You know what I mean? This is great.
We try.
Love it.
We're a tired couple.
We're like 2 Energizer bunnies.
But you guys are pumping it, though. Good stuff.
It's been fun.
Well, it's been, I mean, I think the pandemic for everyone has been an exercise in discipline, as well as planning and introspection. So, you know, I've been using this time really well in development. And, you know, because I'm on 5 musicals, I'm on Mary and Max the musical, my play Rain and Zoe Save the World, which was just optioned. It looks like it will happen in the UK next year.
Nice.
Has been by Bobby Cronin. And so all these pieces needed a Postcard American Town by Lynn Schenkel. We were awarded a residency at San Diego State University. They have their own musical theater program, which is incredible. So all these things kind of came into place to help development and then start showing. The thing that's coming up to show is pretty. There's a few things upcoming. I was accepted as a member of the Playwright Center in Minneapolis, and so they are doing a 29-hour workshop of my play Pulp Verte, directed by Kareem Fahmy with a great cast. And March 3rd live. If you are into just like, you know what, I'm tired of just you know, if you want to see some foibles on Zoom and some amazing things, it's going to be a great presenter reading. Also, I think we have a set designer we're working with too, so it's going to be super cool.
So March 3rd, March 3rd, you can buy Comic Book History of Animation number 4, read it, and then log on to Zoom and watch Crystal's read.
And that is at 7 Central Time at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I think also the King Kirby will be dropping that day as well.
That will be the cast.
Yeah.
No, that'll be episode 4.
Episode 4. So you can listen to episode 4. You you know, you can in the morning have some cereal, check out the Saturday morning cartoons. Then you can flip over and see this play reading. It's a very political play. It's about our failure in Syria as Americans, and it's a group of filmmakers. And it really goes into politics we're dealing with today, and I'm really excited about it. So that's what's upcoming, and then working on other pieces to come out when we're not in a pandemic.
Wow, you keep him busy. I love this. That's the way you do it, guys. That's the way you do it. Exactly. So the last thing I want to ask here, and this is for both of you, just advice for writers. You know, especially like you said, being stuck in COVID. What's the best advice you give, you know, writers that are, you know, locked in at the crib right now, those creative folks?
Well, my advice would be, and this may help or hurt being in lockdown or during a pandemic time, but, you know, finish what you start. I waste a lot of my 20s starting stuff and then abandoning it and then moving on to some other thing too quickly. Because a lot of times until you finish what you write, you don't know what it is that it is. You know, you don't know.
Gotcha.
You don't know how to revise until you understand what the piece is, and sometimes you don't know what the piece is until you finish it.
Wow, there you go. What about you, Crystal?
Well, you know, this is a time where writers are supporting other writers like I've never seen before, and in multitude of ways. This was already happened, but now has made a super breakthrough in terms of diverse new voices and the clarity of talking about that conversation and pointing to the failures that the pandemic pointed out to us. So I think this is a great time where you can get together with a group on Zoom to hear your pages out loud, or put together that group, you know, in a great diverse room where you're really hearing different opinions on your work. You are challenging yourself as a writer. So there's a lot of development you can do in this year. And really it's about who are you? Who do you want to be? And when the doors start opening again in 2022 or late 21, you know, how do you walk through them? What are you walking through them with? And be you and explore your identity within those pages and explore the stories that only you can tell. Because we need those stories. As you can see from COVID, we need inspiration. So it might feel like a lot like right now. It does feel like there's a lot out there, but we need all of it because you're reaching somebody and you're inspiring them in a whole new way. So I encourage you to keep going forward and worry less about how is it all going to happen. And when you have the piece, when you have what you're writing that people care about and want in whatever medium it's in, it's like a piece of gold, and people will keep coming to it as you refine it, and it will find its way. And just have courage and faith in that. And if you ever get bummed out, call another writer. I call it Playwright 911. You know, call somebody. Call somebody.
Excellent. Great advice, folks. And I hope you guys really take that into account, because these two folks here are kicking ass in their respective fields. Please, again, let me pop it up. Broadway Podcast Network, King Kirby Audio Drama. And, you know, actually, once COVID is all over, are you guys going to do live shows again?
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
Hey,
We're working on a new one.
We're working on a new play.
And a new comic book one?
No.
Oh, okay. Are you guys going to
But
do
it's
another
still
one
good.
based? Of course.
Funny.
It's you guys. You know, you guys got the Midas touch. But even before we go, will you guys touch on any other creators in the future?
We do have a TV series that we've been developing, and the pilot has placed in a lot of competitions. It's called Paper Heroes. So as I'm starting to move, or we're exploring expanding into those different mediums, I really want to find a home for that TV show, because it's really great. And it spans different decades. Comic book creators.
Ooh.
This is
Well,
true.
God bless with the idea. I would love to definitely watch in. I'll be a subscriber. You just put it on an affordable channel.
There you go.
They're kicking our ass with this a la carte stuff right now. What can you for? You got to cut cable, then get Disney, Netflix, Hulu, whatever to keep up to date. It's fun though. Who cares?
Complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated, but it's fun complicated. And thank you guys though for making something that's just fun without complications, which is the King Kirby audio drama and play and more, and the comics and the plays and the musicals. You guys really kick butt. God bless you. Keep moving forward. Very happy to have had you on.
Thanks for
Professor
having us.
ShadeWing, thank you for tuning in. And you folks, thank you for watching and tuning in. Leave your comments below. Make sure to subscribe to us. You know, the subscribe button is right at the bottom right there, all right? Make sure to check us out at comiccrusaders.com, undercovercapes.com. And with that, I'm Al Mega. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Bye.
Bye. This is great.
Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this Comic Crusaders production. For real-time news on all things pop culture, please feel free to follow us on social media. For articles, original content, merchandise, and more, please go to www.comiccrusaders.com. Also follow along with all of the websites in the Comic Crusaders family. As always, if you like this content, please click like and subscribe to the Comic Crusaders YouTube channel.